Bleach 1000 Year Blood War drops in less than a month, and that means war with the Quincy is on our doorstep. And as we prepare for that war, I think now is as good a time as any to analyze the 5 most dangerous players the Soul Society has in their corner. And I know what you're thinking. This sucker uploading another Bleach video? Yes. What, bro, you wanna fight about it? Look, the thing is, Bleach is up right now. Bleach fans are eating, so I gotta ride the wave, y'all. I gotta do this, and if you got a problem with it,
what you gonna do?
With that being said, today we are going to take a look at the Special War Powers. These are essentially 5 incredibly dangerous individuals that the Quincy have singled out as being game changers in their war against the Soul Society. What I want to do is take a look at each one of them, why they've been singled out, and explain it in the most simple way possible. Now, we could just stop there, but I want to have a little more fun and look at 5 alternative choices once we're done looking at the actual 5. So if you guys are ready,
oh yes, Daddy,
it's time for a breakdown of the Special War Powers. Now, starting us off at the bottom of this list, we have Kisuke Urahara. And the reason why he's chosen by the Vandenreich, the Quincy army, is his unknown means. Really, that's another way of saying his brains. One of the primary reasons why Kisuke Urahara is a fan favorite character in Bleach is because he is routinely known as the smartest character in the entire series. This title is all but solidified when we hear Aizen himself, the most conceited and arrogant person in all of Bleach, straight up admit that Kisuke Urahara's intelligence was the only one that superseded his. In fact, Ichigo would have lost his battle against Aizen had Urahara not created something to trap and seal him in the event that Ichigo wasn't able to finish him off. But really, it's not just his intelligence that makes Urahara a threat, it's his ability to adapt and counter any situation he faces. He is basically a Bleach Batman. Given any amount of prep time, Urahara can solve almost any problem. We see this several times throughout the show, really starting when Ichigo needs to learn Bankai in a super short period of time, and we find out that Urahara created a device specifically meant to teach someone Bankai or allow them to achieve their Bankai in 3 days. We also see this during the 1000 Year Blood War when the Quincy managed to steal all of the captain's Bankais, and Urahara is the one that creates a solution that allows them to gain their Bankai back. Urahara is on this list because he is a trickster, he's a schemer. You really can't keep him down for very long. Give him a problem and time to solve it, he most definitely will, and that makes him a huge problem for a all-out war. And he certainly proves his merit on the battlefield during the war. They were right to consider him a threat. Next up is Sosuke Aizen for none other than his immense godlike Reiatsu levels. After his interaction with the Hogyoku, it rejects him during his fight with Ichigo, and he begins to lose all of the transcendent forms and power that he had acquired. However, not only did the Hogyoku leave him immortal, it allowed him to keep those insane god levels of Reiatsu and spiritual pressure that he had in those forms. If anything, during his time sealed away in Muken after he is defeated by Ichigo and Urahara, he gets stronger. Aizen's Reiatsu is so powerful at this point that the prison attendant's hand literally fades away just as he reaches into Aizen's vicinity. And this is while he's still strapped to a Reiatsu concealing chair and sealed away still. Later on during the war, when the Soul King's power overflows out of Yhwach and starts trickling down into Soul Society and attacking all of the Soul Reapers, we actually get a taste of just how much Reiatsu Aizen actually has when he manages to absolutely demolish all of them with nothing more than a casual flex of his spiritual pressure. As if that's not enough, he actually takes it a step further and performs a Hado 90 with no incantation and absolutely destroys all of them in one shot. And then, as a cherry on top of this absolute nonsense, the most impressive potential showing of his level of power is when the Soul Reapers are trying to figure out how to get up to the Soul King Palace, and Aizen quite casually insists that he can shoot down the Soul King Palace using his Reiatsu alone, while strapped to a chair and still sealed away. I believe Aizen was fully convinced that by using his spiritual pressure alone, he could actually launch it as a freaking Kamehameha and shoot down the Soul King Palace. Aizen later proves to be a vital part of the final battle against Yhwach, and I would say yes, they were absolutely right to consider Sosuke Aizen post Hogyoku an extreme threat. Coming in at number 3 is leader of Squad 0, Ichibei Hyosube. Being one of, if not the oldest Soul Reaper in all of Soul Society, Ichibei is listed as a considerable threat for his wisdom. I find this really interesting, since Ichibei's Zanpakuto and its unique abilities seem really dangerous, and yet that's not the reason why he's chosen as a special war power. It's because of his knowledge. If you don't know, Ichibei was given the title the Monk Who Calls the True Name by the Soul King himself, and is responsible for naming everything in Soul Society, including the Zanpakuto and every single Zanpakuto spirit in existence. Not only that, but he was there during Yuha's first invasion of Soul Society and has intimate knowledge of the Quincy, Yhwach, their strategies. In fact, during their battle, Yhwach seems to be on the back foot the entire time. There is nothing the Quincy King can pull out of his back pocket that Ichibei does not have an answer for. That is, until Yuha pulls out the biggest cheat code in Bleach history.
I am disgusted.
However, despite the massive advantage that Ichibei brings to the battlefield using his knowledge, he actually doesn't accomplish all that much. While he does assist in training the Soul Reapers that do come to the Soul King Palace and gives them a huge boost in their powers, which comes in handy later, Ichibei himself accomplishes surprisingly little. Once Yhwach activates the Almighty, there's really nothing Ichibei can do. I'm pretty sure he gets one-shotted after that. It's pretty sad. With the number 2 spot, it's actually an interesting story. At one point, it was Ichigo Kurosaki, and Kenpachi was number 1. However, after this dude got freaking slapped by Royd Lloyd, he got demoted to 2nd place, and Ichigo becomes the most dangerous on this list. So, coming in at number 2 is the monster himself, Kenpachi Zaraki. And if it wasn't obvious to you already, Kenpachi being the name given to the strongest Soul Reaper, it makes sense that he would be on this list specifically for his fighting power. If these guys are the Avengers, Kenpachi is the Hulk. He is pretty much the unstoppable force on the Soul Society's team, and that's before he unlocks his true Zanpakuto and his Bankai. Once Kenpachi taps into his true power after his battle with Unohana and unlocks Nozarashi and his unnamed Bankai, he effortlessly shatters a meteorite after unlocking his Shikai for the first time ever, and goes on to handedly defeat, or at least take part in defeating, the 2 strongest Sternritter, those being Gremmy the Visionary and Gerard the Miracle. His Shikai alone is strong enough to, as I said before, obliterate a meteorite with no effort whatsoever and cut through space itself. While his Bankai was so strong, it could cut Gerard in half easily while he was at his god size, and caused him to physically rip his own arm apart from the force of him cocking back to swing. If you ask me, I'd say Kenpachi Zaraki handedly deserves his spot on this list. However, as I said before, the number 1 spot ultimately goes to Ichigo Kurosaki.
It's your boy, Skinny Pink.
We're told that the reason for his placement is his latent or hidden potential. Like this dude is freaking Gohan or something. Because of Ichigo's unique 1 in a million heritage, that being a human Quincy with Hollow and Soul Reaper powers, Ichigo is a completely one-of-a-kind being that cannot really be predicted. His fights with Ulquiorra, Aizen, and later Yhwach himself show us exactly what this means. When Ichigo is quite literally murdered in cold blood by Ulquiorra, his response is to transform into a hollow so powerful he absolutely humiliates the Espada. Like, effortlessly. When Aizen fuses with the Hogyoku and becomes a literal god, Ichigo's response is to train for 3 months straight, come back, and absolutely humiliate Aizen. From the enemy's perspective, these power-ups seem to have come out of nowhere because they are unaware of Ichigo's unique heritage, or at least in Aizen's case, unaware of how powerful it actually makes him. And towards the end of the 1000-Year Blood War, we see what happens when Ichigo masters all of these powers and manages to keep them in balance. he is able to merge completely with his inner hollow and do some insane things like fire a Grand Rei Sero Getsuga Tensho fusion technique that was so powerful, it literally forced Yhwach to get up from his seat and start taking Ichigo seriously. And that was after he had absorbed the Soul King. Long story short, as a Quincy, Hollow, and Soul Reaper hybrid, Ichigo is not something to be played with. And not only that, Ichigo is the result of a pure-blooded Quincy, a captain-level Soul Reaper from noble lineage, and a Hollow that was specifically created by Aizen to be as strong as any captain with a Shikai. So yeah, Ichigo is that dude. Now that we've taken a look at the 5 official Special War powers, let's take a look at who I chose as our 5 alternate picks for this team. My first pick is none other than Captain Commander Genryusai Yamamoto. As the founder, leader, and most powerful member of the Gotei 13 for over 1,000 years, it's pretty easy to understand why he would be a pretty good pick for this team. In fact, during their battle, Yhwach himself tells Yamamoto that the only reason he didn't consider him one of the Special War powers is simply because he's gone soft over the years. Yamamoto was unwilling to exploit the humans, specifically Orihime's healing ability, for his own good to heal his left arm, or right arm. And because of his unwillingness to use people and be as ruthless and brutal as he was in the past, Yhwach did not consider him a member of this team, and thus he's here. Honestly though, after seeing the sheer destructive power of his Shikai and the absolute insanity that is Zanka no Tachi, his Bankai, I am still convinced Yamamoto is an absolute game changer in the war against the Quincy. My second alternate choice is Shukuro Tsukushima in his Fullbring Book of End. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but Tsukushima's Fullbring is completely and utterly insane. Whatever this man cuts with his sword, he can insert himself into that thing's past, whether it's an item or a person. That's like reality manipulation and time manipulation all in one. But more importantly, it is a perfect counter to the Almighty. When Yhwach breaks Ichigo's Bankai, Orihime and Tsukushima are the two that help him to restore it. And this is because, although Yhwach can change the future, any and every future, Tsukushima can change the past. Therefore, no matter what Yhwach does, Tsukushima can make it so that it didn't happen. And since we know from the Can't Fear Your Own World novels that Tsukushima and Ginjo got even stronger after becoming residents of the Soul Society, I am inclined to believe that by the time the Thousand Year Blood War rolls around, Tsukushima is powerful enough and his Book of End is overpowered enough to make him a real threat if he decided to use Book of End's abilities against Yhwach the Almighty. This one might be a shocker, but speaking of Orihime, she's next on this list, and it's not for the reasons you might think. Look, here's the thing. I don't care what you guys say, Orihime's rejection ability is broken. As a matter of fact, it's been noted by several characters throughout the show to be far more dangerous and powerful than Orihime even realizes. And that is due in large part to her sweet and non-violent nature. But again, similar to Tsukushima, Orihime's ability is not only powerful and dangerous, it is a great counter to the Almighty. Now, we know from the manga that Orihime's powers on their own are not powerful enough to directly counter the Almighty, since Yhwach is just that powerful. Hence why she's not able to fix Ichigo's Bankai on her own. However, paired with Tsukushima's Book of End, she is able to reject things that have already happened. Again, essentially being able to reverse whatever Yhwach the Almighty does. I guess what I'm saying is that the power itself is extremely relevant to the battle, and it would be a great help. Orihime herself is just too fragile and too non-violent of a person to use that ability to its fullest potential. That being said, we do see her use it to block some of Yhwach's attacks, and even react fast enough to block an attack from Yhwach that Ichigo couldn't comprehend. So while her ability on its own may not be powerful enough to directly go up against Yhwach's power, it is strong enough to do some damage and be a real frustration to the battle, especially paired with other people that can make a dent. One of those very people would be my next pick, Uryu Ishida. We are actually given two very good reasons why Uryu is a major threat to Yhwach throughout the manga. The first one comes from Yhwach himself. who says that Uryu, for some reason, was the only Quincy who was able to survive his Osvalin technique. We still don't know exactly why Uryu was able to resist this, but Yuhabak seemed to think that it meant Uryu had a power in him that was stronger than Yuhabak's, hence why Yuhabak names Uryu his successor. The second reason actually comes from Yugrim Hashvalf. During their final battle, when Uryu reveals his shrift, the antithesis, Hashvalf notes that that power is actually a great counter to the Almighty, which is a great reason why he can't let Uryu get to Yuhabak. Most of the people that I'm choosing for this alternative list have a special ability that gives them a great counter to the instant win card that is the Almighty. And both Yuhabak and his second in command both recognize Uryu possesses some innate ability and the ability given by Yuhabak himself that make him an extreme threat to the Quincy King and his entire mission. And last but certainly not least is Captain of the 13th Division Jushiro Ukitake. We learned during the Thousand Year Blood War that despite his intense illness, the reason Ukitake is able to survive and even be a powerful captain in the Gotei 13 is because he is inhabited by the right hand of the Soul King, Mimihagi. Besides the blatantly obvious reason why that would be important, we actually learned that Mimihagi is one of the few things that Yuha's the Almighty cannot see, which makes Ukitake's involvement in the war extremely important. And I'd like to think that had Yuhabak known about this, he would have certainly listed Ukitake as a major threat to be considered. And even though releasing Mimihagi kills Ukitake from the strain it takes on his body, Mimihagi's involvement at all is enough to warrant a huge level of concern and attention. Well guys, there you have it. Those are 5 of Soul Society's most dangerous combatants explained, as well as my picks for their alternate choices. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like and a comment, subscribe to the channel so you can see more of this, and hit the notification bell so you know when I drop more content. And let me know down in the comments who you think the most valuable special war power is, as well as who you would pick as an alternative for them. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.